Hey guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jake, your bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by Drew. And Drew, today we're going to be talking a lot of Lakers basketball. I know it's been on everybody's mind, going on with this massive mega deal we wound up seeing in the NBA. And we're also going to be talking about the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, they're going to win the Super Bowl, so why even talk about them? We're going to at least go through the games and help list out some of these wins for you guys.
Definitely don't have the Browns winning the Super Bowl when I look at it, but whatever.
I do. 16-0, 17-0. They're going to win the bye week.
They're gonna win the bye week. They're gonna be the first 16-0 team since 74.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all because
there was the Patriots, but they lost the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, not perfect all the way through. This team will be. All right? Preseason
perfect.
And all, okay?
All the way through.
What was the only other team that the Patriots lost to that season of 16-0? Do you know? The Titans in the preseason, because we've got their number. Interesting fact that you'll never need.
You always got something to look forward to.
And it was week 3, the important week in preseason. So, just saying, we were kind of a big deal. Going into what we're talking about tonight, though, yes, we are going to break down the Cleveland Browns 2019 schedule and how we feel like they're going to do. I wonder if they're going to match up with kind of everybody's expectations that all of a sudden they're going to be a great team because they've made all these moves. Good to see you, Sharif. But first, let's get started by talking about the Lakers here, Drew, because if you haven't heard, and I'm sure you've heard, if you've been paying any kind of attention to sports, you've heard the Lakers gave up pretty much everybody except for Kyle Kuzma and LeBron to go get Anthony Davis.
Oh, man. What a huge trade for the Lakers. I mean, there's no doubt about it. One of the biggest franchise in any sport, literally saying we are willing to trade away our future to win another championship with LeBron James there. And if you believe any of the hype or any of the media or any of the Las Vegas odds, now this team is the favorite to win an NBA championship next year. Which
I think everyone expects the Warriors are out, right?
You're right. And I think we both here have a lot of question marks going into that, a little bit for different reasons, but we both think that that's kind of a high mark to put them already in the championship.
I definitely agree. Obviously, basketball is one of those games that one of these guys gets hurt. Look at Golden State. This was the team that was destined to win it all because you look at how deep they're and how great they are in the front line, but they didn't have any depth, and it looks like the Lakers are going to sacrifice all that depth. Before we go into it, I will list it off in case you haven't heard. They traded Hart, Ingram, and Lonzo Ball, 3 first-round picks, and I believe they swapped 2 first-round picks with the Pelicans as well, gave them the option to switch with them, all for Anthony Davis. This, to me, for a guy who is already leaving, Drew, is absolutely just too much. I understand what they're trying to do because it's a superstar-driven league. It's a league where you have to have more superstars than the other team if you want to win a championship. But he's leaving. After this year, he said he wanted to go play for the Lakers. He said he wanted to go out there and play with LeBron James. Was it that important to get the deal done now? Or could you have kept each and every one of these guys, kept all the draft picks, and then waited to sign them in 2020?
Steve, you said that the Raptors parade was on fire. Man, I'm jealous that you got to be there enjoying it. Owen said that the Browns have never won a bye week. I'm agreeing with that. Steve says that the Lakers are going to need some serious depth, and Sharif said Lakers better hope that LeBron and Davis at least play between 65 to 70 games. I'm agreeing with you. I think once Anthony Davis has played 68 games, he has a problem with staying out there for majority of the season. LeBron did find himself injured this year and missed some games. I think that's going to be the issue. Talking about their trade and what it means for Ingram and Hart and Ball, I think it gives them all a second chance with the Pelicans. Because let's be completely honest, what they were doing before LeBron showed there was literally nothing in the Lakers organization. I think this second chance gives everyone a chance to be better than what they were. And even though I've never been high on Ball, I think as long as someone possibly could show him how to shoot the ball, he might have a career as well. But the biggest for Ingram and Hart, I think this is huge for these two guys. I guess a chance for them to actually maybe see them being maybe an all-star once or twice because they're finally out of the shadow of the Lakers organization.
I agree. I think this could be big for them. I think the offense is probably going to have to run through them. Obviously, Zion Williamson's coming in, but we don't see rookies just dominating the NBA. Usually it takes a couple of years to kind of grow into it. I mean, look at guys like Giannis. Even Joel Embiid, when they came in, they didn't just dominate the league. It took them a couple of years to get the strength to kind of match up with the NBA's best. When you're that young, it's not easy to go up against these guys that are 28 and have been doing weight training and everything else for the past 15 years. you can't sit there and say that just drafting that highly is going to be able to turn this franchise around, but it's a work in progress. They got incredibly young. They got a lot of talent that I believe is going to help eventually grow together. And maybe, who knows, a couple years from now, one or two of these guys pan out and they talk about having a couple superstars. We could be talking about how the Pelicans made the steal of the move here, which I think everyone's saying the Pelicans won this trade. For a guy who said, I don't want to play for you next year, to go and get all this from a team that desperately needed him, I think that has to be counted as a win, right? Even though they're not going to win in 2019, you have to call them the winner of this trade.
I don't know if I can sit there and say that, because you gave away a player in his prime, arguably one of the best in the NBA. I mean, this guy, the only reason I think he's so underrated is because he plays in New Orleans. But who's a for sure thing? Who on this is a for sure thing? Because everyone's saying this is a 3-man draft. They got the number 4 pick overall from this pick.
They are open to trading.
You got Hart, you got Ingram, and you got Ball. And as far as I'm concerned, Ball's a bust so far.
Right.
Hart and Ingram, like I said, might get a second win here. You get a 4th pick that everyone's saying that's not is worth it, and they let it all go. And that's so when you sit there and say that they won this trade, I don't know if they did.
But
who is their for sure all-star?
Well, here's the thing. You're not winning in 2019. But in the future, if you manage these picks and you manage these guys right, you're going to be able to actually turn this into something. Here's the problem. Anthony Davis said he's gone. And I get what you're saying. Literally, every other team in the NBA could have said, we're not going to do anything for all of 2019. He said he doesn't even want to play for you. He could sit out a year. And then if they don't pay him, or if they don't trade him, you get literally nothing. Anthony Davis walks. What would this team look like with no Anthony Davis? Now you don't have Hart. Now you don't have Ingram. Now you don't have Ball. More importantly, now you don't have the number 4 pick overall, which can be used to leverage to trade for somebody. You go get Bradley Beal with that, or someone like Washington that's trying to move him out. You go sit there and trade for anybody else. Where would they be if they didn't have all these assets? He brought in a ton of assets for a guy who said, I will never play for this organization again. The Lakers could have waited this out and rolled the dice and said, I'm willing to bet that LeBron James, the way he takes care of his body, is going to be healthy in 2020, and he's still going to be effective in 2020. We'll sign him. We'll sign Anthony Davis for nothing more than it costs to sign him. Give up none of these assets. You're right. Give up none of these assets, and then all of a sudden we have a stacked team that's incredibly deep. Instead, the Lakers kind of jumped the gun and said, well, we need to win. We need to win right now that the Golden State Warriors are more than likely going to be banged up next year, and Houston's got some internal turmoil going on where apparently Harden and Paul aren't getting along. Now's our chance to strike. They're betting it all on winning a championship this year, and I just don't know that that's the best way to run your franchise. You don't want to sell out for that one big punch and then have the team kind of crumble after that. Not that it'll crumble as long as Anthony Davis is there, but he's going to get he's already said he wants to test free agency after next year. If things don't go their way out there in LA, there's a good chance he could leave you. And then you traded all this for 1 year and not get anything out of it.
I get that they won the number game. I get that they won the future of an organization. But let's just say this all works out for the Lakers organization. Let's just say they go out and get themselves a point guard and some shooting around LeBron and AD, and this team becomes good. Those picks no longer become valid. I mean, I'm sorry. They don't. At this point in time,
it's more of a
in
game.
the NBA draft, if you're not sitting at the top 5 to 10 picks, not even that low.
It really
it's
is
really
5.
5.
Yeah.
You're not getting anybody. It's a needle in a haystack at that point.
Well, Curry was drafted outside the top 5. I think Clay was too. It can happen.
It can happen.
And
but you're more than likely not seeing it through the Lakers if they start succeeding. So in the numbered game, the Pelicans won this draft, but in the game of winning championships, which is the only reason any of these teams suit up and go out on the court is to win a championship, the Lakers won this so
Would
far.
you give up the next 15 years of your franchise? Or let's stay conservative. Would you give up the next 5? Because
he's willing
with
to
the swaps
he's
and
willing
the
to
picks
sign a
up.
big deal.
Okay.
He's willing to sign a big deal.
That's not what he said. He said he's willing to test free agency next year. So he'll sign a big deal, but not right away.
I think he's willing to sign a deal with LA. I think that's what he's willing to do. And he wasn't in New Orleans. So that's if they could do that, that's going to be great for them. I just don't know if I can sit there and say the Pelicans won this deal. I think it's yet to be seen.
I think the Pelicans 100% won, but that doesn't necessarily mean the Lakers lost. You don't always need to have a win-loss. Sometimes both teams can get better. Obviously, you're right. The Lakers are incredibly closer to winning a championship next year than they were before this deal happened. But on the reverse of that, you just mortgage the futures of 3 first-round picks. Lonzo Ball, Ingram, and Hart were all first-round picks, even though I think Hart was like 30 or something like that, so he's barely a first-round pick. Yeah. And then you gave up 3 more first-round picks, one of which was a top 5 player this year with that number 4 overall pick. And then you swapped 2 years where the Pelicans have the right to sit there and trade draft picks with you if they so choose. I look at this, Drew. That is an awful lot for an expiring contract. You have to sit there and say the Pelicans did a good job out of this, because this very well could have been nothing.
I do think they did a great job.
But you're not willing to say the Lakers didn't get the better end of the deal?
I'm not saying that, because if what matters the most is who wins the championship, and the Lakers are that much closer than the Pelicans.
The moral of the story is win this year if you're the Lakers, because what happens if LeBron or Anthony Davis gets injured about halfway through, and then the season goes off the rails?
Oh, I think they're going to.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I think the most important thing, now that you made this deal and you're out there in LA, regardless, we'll talk about what they should do with that extra max contract if they're able to get it and everything. The next thing you need to do as the Lakers is rest Anthony Davis. He does not need to be playing, the entire first half of the season. He'd probably be playing about 25 of those first 40 games for me. I would want this guy coming on strong in the second half of the season, moving into the playoffs. It's kind of like, I think it was Sharif before said, you're only going to get 65 or 70 games out of him. That's okay. I'm more than willing to let him sit on the bench for 25 to 30 games of the regular season, because it's basketball. It doesn't really matter what seed you are. Just get into the playoffs and show up as healthy and as ready to go as you can. I would let other guys sit there and put it on them. I'd even be willing to be a 5th, 6th, 7th seed if that's what it meant, getting Davis and LeBron in healthy going into the playoffs.
Sharif brought up some of their the starting 5 for each team. Sharif said, for the Pelicans, Ball, Holiday, Ingram, Zion, and Randall. Unfortunately, Randall did not pick up his option, so we don't know if Randall's going to be there or not.
He might also just want more money, too.
Well, that's true. Yeah. He said that he sees them as an 8th seed next year. He says that that's a good enough. I don't believe in Ball, man. I honestly don't believe in Ball.
I don't like the distraction that comes with him. I think he's a decent distributor right now. That's what you want from a point guard. I know he's not a superstar, and obviously with the draft pick, he's not living up to that. At this point, it's water under the bridge. But as a player, you're still getting an okay player.
If you replace him and you could keep Randall there, I love those 4 in the next 3 to 4 years. I absolutely love that starting.
And I still do like Ball there and everything. I think this is one of those things that I don't think they're going to be the 8th seed like Sharif said. I think they're going to be a team that misses the playoffs this year, maybe even next year. But then we start to see some development. We start to see some games where, man, Lonzo dropped 25 points and had 15 assists. He's passing the ball and scoring.
That's who he needs to be.
Ingram's taking the game over. Or Josh Hart's finally living up to a little bit more potential. We're seeing more out of him. Or all these guys fit in really well with Zion, and they just have a very deep team instead of everyone else that seems to want to go very shallow and just have superstars on the team. I mean, the Lakers are pretty much betting it all. If they go and sign this another max contract player, the rest of this team, it's going to look like Golden State, where you just got some guys out there that really don't look like they belong, and if you lose 1 or 2 of these guys, the season's over. Yeah. I mean, when I say that, they made the finals, but they would have beat Toronto if everyone was healthy. And I don't mean to break your heart, Steve, but Toronto would have lost this if Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson were 100% healthy going into that series. The problem is, when you go that top-heavy, the rest of your team and all your depth looks terrible.
I don't believe that. I believe in destiny, and I think they were destined to win that. It's the reason why they won, and that's just how I feel. I think the Warriors, on paper, still should have beat that team with Durant being down, and even with Klay Thompson limping. I still think that team should have beat the Raptors. They did not. It was destined for the Raptors to win.
I mean, there were points in Game 6 they were triple teaming Curry.
I don't
they
care.
were triple teaming, and it's like literally if anyone could have stepped up, if anyone could do anything, that was the time. I mean, you had 2 or 3 guys wide open on the court, Drew, and they weren't scoring the ball. So,
but you act like they stomped them. They didn't. They beat them by a point.
I know, and Golden State is good, but that's my point.
They
beat them by a single point.
That's my point.
Now imagine Durant and Klay Thompson are both 100% playing healthy. What does that series look like? They beat them by a point without 2 superstars.
You play the game as it's being played. As they start scoring points, you put things in to start scoring points.
I think Curry would have had a much better series if he would have had those other 2 guys in the court. That's all I can say.
I want to get back to some of what Sharif said. He said the starting 5 for the Lakers is Rondo, Redick, Danny Green, LeBron, and AD.
Well, he's assuming they bring Danny Green and Redick into town.
Right.
That's if they don't sign a max contract. And I was actually going to talk about that. Do you think it would be better for them to go for a more depth perspective? You've got two superstars, guys especially like LeBron and Anthony Davis that are both able to shoot from distance and drive in and dominate next to the basket. Would they just be better off going and signing a couple shooters? Because you look at some of these names out here. I mean, J.J. Redick's out there, Terrence Ross. You can get Collison from the Pacers. You got Danny Green. You can go out and get DeMarcus Cousins, bring him back with Anthony Davis, and probably sign him for about $10 million. After the injury-plagued season he had up there in Golden State, you might be able to sign him on the cheap and have one of the best front courts in all the NBA. I mean, for a league that's going towards the shooters, imagine that who can stack up against Cousins, Davis, and LeBron all on the inside? That'd be an interesting move.
It would be a three-pointing team like the Warriors.
Well, I'm saying
or the Houston.
Well, hear me out. Sign Cousins. You've got Davis who can shoot threes. Cousins can shoot pretty well for a big man. I would call him a stretch big, I guess. He's a center that can shoot. Then you have LeBron at the 3. You could go sign either Redick, who shoots about 38%, or you could sign Collison, who's shooting like 45% or something from the field.
Collison would be a good pickup.
You bring in one guy that for half the price of a max contract.
What has LeBron done to win championships? What has he done for teams that have come into him and said, this is how I'm going to win?
Brought in superstars. But who has he not been able to beat? Teams that do the same thing, like Golden State.
What style of superstars? Shooters.
Well, Kevin Love, Bosh. That's my other point. Is Anthony Davis a right fit here? Because
he's never played with a guy this talented before, ever.
And I totally agree. But what do we say about Kevin Love?
He's better than Kyrie. He's better than Wade.
What do we say?
I know I'm probably gonna step on toes there. He's never played with a talent like this. Never, not once.
What did we say when they brought in Kevin Love? Man, this guy gets 20 points and 20 rebounds up there for the Timberwolves, man. He's going to be great with LeBron, right?
Then he took a step back.
And what do they say about Bosh? So, like, dude, this is one of the biggest big men in the league. He's an up-and-comer. Everyone knows he's going to be amazing with LeBron, and he took a step back, too. Is that the natural progression for Anthony Davis here? Is his game, or the big man's game, doesn't really fit playing with how LeBron James needs to play? Does he need smaller superstars around him? Because his most success...
He needs shooters.
Well... D-Wade's not a shooter. D-Wade drives in and scores, too.
He was a shooter.
Not from 3.
No.
He had a mid-range game, but he did not shoot from 3. If we're talking about, like, shooters these days, we're talking about guys that can make an impact outside the arc.
That was a little while ago, though, before this became a three-point league. But when you sit there and look at Sharice's starting 5, where he has Rondo, Redick, and Danny Green, is that enough points for them to win a championship? If that was their roster.
Teams are going to shrink up with Davis and LeBron. I think bringing in someone like Redick and Danny Green, just guys who could rip threes with high percentages, I think that's perfect. I think Danny Green is a stingy enough defender, too, that if he was playing the 3, could make he could do enough in those clutch situations that would probably play good enough defense to win a championship. Yeah, I think that would be a good 3. Or a good 5, I mean. I'm not crazy about Rondo, but he's a distributor at this point. I think that's okay. He can get the ball to Redick when he's open. He can get the ball to LeBron when he's open.
Yeah.
That's not the worst starting 5. My question is, who are the 6, 7, 8 men on this roster that are inevitably going to have to play, especially if Anthony Davis gets hurt?
I mean, let's be all honest. The fascination of playing with LeBron James and AD is going to bring people there. There's no doubt about it. I think that those two alone will bring a superstar willing to take a contract less than the max deal.
I hope it's Kemba Walker. He seems like the biggest team guy out there. He seems like the guy that would take less money.
If they brought him in, they're the number 1 seed in the West. And I'm not saying that until they bring in a talent like that.
Right. I would like to see it be Kemba Walker. I think that'd be the best fit. I'd like to see Kemba Walker go somewhere where he can succeed. I don't think he gets it done in Charlotte. I know he's trying to recruit for the team, and he's saying he'd take less money to bring in a superstar. Yeah. Charlotte's just not there. I think it's time for him to move on. But I think he stays loyal. I think he's a guy that's going to re-sign with them for no reason. Let's go into some of these comments, because we've been talking forever. Let's hear what you guys have to say. Sharif says the Lakers can also try to get Brook Lopez. Would you go after Brook Lopez? Is that enough? I mean, you've already got Anthony Davis. You'd have, again, one of the better front courts, or best front courts, if you put LeBron at the 3, Anthony Davis at the 4, and then you got Lopez at the 5. That's pretty formidable. I mean, it's going to be hard for teams to match up with that many big guys.
But you find teams like Houston and the Warriors that could put up threes very quickly.
And you're not guarding them with guys like Brook Lopez.
You're not.
You're not guarding on the perimeter.
And you're going to need to have shooters. As great as that front court would be, that doesn't fit with what the NBA is changing to. That's why you see teams like the Lakers or even the Pelicans last year, where they can't succeed in the postseason properly because their main person is in the front court of it. I mean, you got to have shooting around these guys.
And more importantly, or just as important, I should say, you got to have guys who can defend that.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I agree with you there. I don't know if Brook Lopez is the guy I'd be going for. If it's me, I'd be trying to lure DeMarcus Cousins in, because as much as I like Brook Lopez, as much as we've seen Brook Lopez try to get built around in Brooklyn, he's still not the guy that's going to ever be the head of a team or anything like that. He's a role player at this point. I don't know that signing Brook Lopez, if you can get DeMarcus Cousins, who has superstar potential, I would much rather see that, even risking the injury. Play him for 40 games. Let him take every other night off and just be done with it. I mean, just get to the playoffs healthy. Even if you're an 8 seed, you'll be fine if you get a healthy DeMarcus Cousins going through it.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing. Adam says that white guy start with a C. What, Adam? I guess I'm confused, man. Tell me what you're talking about. A little confused there. That white guy start with a C.
Adam also said LeBron needs shooters and he has no clutch. I kind of agree. I think bringing on a guy that's a clutch shooter, I like J.J. Redick. I would like to see Darren Collison and J.J. Redick play in that front court. You have Collison play the point. You have Redick play the 2. Both of those guys, tremendous shooters. I'd like to see that. And then LeBron and Anthony Davis, and you bring on a guy who's either going to play the 3 or the 4 or the 5, and you're good. I mean, you could literally shift LeBron to the 4 or the 5 or the 3. He can play anywhere on the court. Anthony Davis can play the 4 or the 5. You have options at that point. You can even play Kuzma probably at the 4, let LeBron be the 3, the small forward, and then you've got Anthony Davis play your 5, play a little bit faster, and you've got a pretty good team there. Not to mention Kuzma's going to get the reps, and he's going to get the time on the court to develop as well.
Absolutely.
And I think we kind of agree, Kuzma, out of all 3 of those, between Ball, Ingram, and Kuzma, he
Hart.
probably has the highest ceiling, and Hart.
Yeah, I know, I agree. Kuzma is the guy that we both said if they go off and trade AD that they'd be done for the Lakers to get rid of, because that is a future piece to the organization of the LA Lakers. They made the right choice not getting rid of him.
Scott also said AD just became a sidekick. He hopes he's ready to build on LeBron's legacy. Is that it, or are you the guy who rescued LeBron, especially after last year? If you come in and you dominate, especially if LeBron has some injuries and you're the guy that sits there and pulls him through it, as long as you stay healthy, is that how the legacy goes out, or are you the guy who rescued LeBron's career? Because we've seen that happen. A lot of people that don't like LeBron will make that point too. He doesn't win without Kyrie. He doesn't win without D. Wade. Are you that next guy that he doesn't win without Anthony Davis? Anthony Davis is the guy who won them the championship. So I get what you're saying.
It's yet to be seen until they start playing, that's for sure. Get a couple more of these comments. Owen and Shriek both say that Kimbo will not leave. He's saying he wants to stay and build a team there in Charlotte. We've seen the comments. We've seen that he's saying that, but let's be all honest, guys. How much do we all believe that Charlotte can become a national or a NBA championship contender?
The real question is it the city that draws people, or is it the talent on the team? I mean, we know that guys want to go play in places like New York and LA where all the media is at, or all the weather's nice sometimes out there in California. Is it so much the city? Because Charlotte's not that sexy of a city when you look at some of these other places in the NBA you can play.
It's a beautiful city.
But if you put enough talent on the roster, are guys going to say, I don't care that it's Charlotte, I'm just here to win? That's the question. I think Kemba Walker might be in the bit of the minority here, in that he just wants to be good and he wants to be loyal to a team. He just wants to win where he's at. I think a lot of these guys want to go to the destination. You want to go to Miami. You want to go to L.A. You want to go to New York. You don't want to go to Charlotte. You don't want to really go to Oklahoma City unless your name's Paul George. You don't want to go to like any of these cities that aren't the it and the happening spot, because so many guys are worried about what else is going on with my career off the basketball court. It's too infrequent for guys to sit there and say, all I care about is basketball. All I care about is winning. Not everybody's Kawhi Leonard. Most of these guys are trying to, be business moguls and do all this other stuff. When that happens, places like Charlotte can't draw those guys.
What's going on, Brian? Didn't mean to ignore your conversation or your comment. Shree says that Brook Lopez was at $3 million when the Lakers decided to trade him off. And now he's carrying a $10 million tag on him. And he said he can also shoot.
And he's right. He can shoot. He's not. He's pretty much a stretch big at this point too. But if you had $10 million, would you rather DeMarcus Cousins or would you rather Brook Lopez? I know Brook Lopez is healthier, but if you want to talk about building the best team when everybody's healthy, I would roll the dice and just bring DeMarcus Cousins back. Plus, he has chemistry with Anthony Davis when they play together in New Orleans. I like Brook Lopez, but I don't think he's as talented as AD or as DeMarcus Cousins is.
Steve says nope. Kippo will go to the Nets, and he says Scott says Kawhi should be the most sought after, but then Steve is saying that he's staying in Toronto. I think that might be a little fan bias there, but
I think he's gone. When they were doing that chant, he was just kind of laughing like, "Ah, just wait till you see what I do to you." I mean, just cue up that Kawhi laugh. I mean, it was one of those things they were chanting, if you didn't see it, at the parade, saying 5 more years, trying to get him to re-sign a contract, and Kawhi was just like, let's not do this right now.
Neil is actually disagreeing with you. He says right now, Brook Lopez is better than Cousins.
He's healthier, and that's important. You're the health guy, right? It's important to be on the court because you can't make an impact when you're sitting there with the ice on your knee.
Yeah. Guess who's not going to be the
but
MVP
when he's
of
playing,
next season?
let's not. Who's that?
Kevin Durant.
Or Brook Lopez?
No, my point
Yeah.
is just what you were saying is it
Right.
doesn't matter how talented you are
If you're not on the court. So I'll give you that. If you want to play it safe, but I don't think the Lakers are playing it safe. You don't give up all this stuff to play it safe. You don't give up 3 first-round guys, 3 more first-round picks, and the option to swap 2 other first-round picks.
No, you're going for the best player available.
To play it safe. You're rolling the dice. And who's the best player? If you said, I need you to take this game over and I need you to beat somebody, would you rather lean on DeMarcus Cousins or would you rather lean on Brook Lopez? I like Brook Lopez. He's not DeMarcus Cousins, though. Not at his prime. And like I said, this, to me, is a rest game for the Lakers. You just have to rest everybody. You have to keep them fresh. I don't care if these guys play 60 games, Drew, or 55, or 40.
There needs to be a little button. Beer bet, beer bet, beer bet. Steve says he'll take a beer bet
On Kawhi,
that Kawhi is staying in Toronto.
I'll take it. What? A beer.
Are you taking it?
I'm down. What about you? What side of the fence do you fall on here, Drew? I think he's gone. I think he wants to go to LA.
I am sticking with what I said at the very beginning. I said Kawhi will leave anything short of a championship. Well, guess what? He's got one.
I said if they make the finals, he'll stay. But having watched him
I'm not going to go back. I think
No.
Kawhi's going to sign.
I got you. But having watched him now, and the non-committal thing after you win, how easy would it be to fire that crowd up and be like, all he had to do is sit there and go like this, and everyone would have been like,
I get it.
Everyone
But
would have gone crazy.
But of course,
He's moving on.
When you hear it over and over again, that is everything that comes out of anyone in Toronto, anyone that's a Raptors fan is, are you going to sign a long-term deal? He's tired of hearing it, man.
I know he's tired of hearing it because the
exhausted.
answer is no, and you just don't want to say it.
Even
because
if it's yes,
no one wants
even
to
if
kneecap
it's
the team.
yes, it's still something that you just don't want to talk about. And everyone knows Kawhi's a silent man when it comes to media. He doesn't want to go out there and be the boisterous guy. He wants to sit there, earn his money, win his championships, and move on. He doesn't want to make a splash in the media. I think he's just tired of answering the question.
I think you're right, but I think he's gone. I really do. I think he's already made up his mind. He even told Toronto, "Don't trade for me because if you do, I'm going to move on after next year." What happened? They traded for him anyway. They sacrificed DeMar DeRozan, poor guy. And then they won a championship. Do I think that changed? No. I think even Kawhi is smart enough to know this team probably is not beating an entirely healthy Golden State. I want to go out to California, where I'm from, and go play somewhere. I think it's going to be the Lakers. It might be the Clippers. I think both of those destinations are probably where he wants to be and probably even better than the Raptors. No offense, Steve. I mean, they played good defense. They played well. They took advantage of the opportunities that were in front of them. They're still a good team, but
players became just as important as Kawhi.
Is Van Fleet going to be that guy for 82 games next year? Is Siakam going to develop the way you think he can? Can Kyle Lowry keep it up? And we like Kyle Lowry, but
You don't need Fred to do that. You just need him to show up in the championships finals.
is Fred Van Fleet showing up like that when Durant is sitting there stealing the momentum all the time, dropping threes, or Klay Thompson is burying people because you forgot he's a superstar too?
I don't know, man.
No is the answer, Drew.
I don't know, man.
No is the answer. I do.
It's not the answer. It's possibility.
Look, Steve, I hope he stays in Toronto. I do. I think it'd be the feel-good story. I'd rather see that than another super team form out there in California where the Lakers sit there and draw Kawhi and Anthony Davis and LeBron, and they just run roughshod over the entire NBA, and they steamroll people. But I think we got to face
the NBA
facts.
is now.
Exactly. And that's why I'm betting on that happening again, man. I hope you're right. I even hope you win this bet, Steve. But my point is, you look at recent history, I think Kawhi's gone. I think he told him beforehand, he's like, He's the guy that it doesn't seem to matter what's going on around him. He's going to do what he wants. He's going to play hard, and that's what it's going to be. I think that's exactly what's going to happen again. He warned you, trade for me, and you get 1 year, and now he's going to prove to them, you traded for me, guess what you got?
No,
1 year.
It's the best 1 year they can get. What's going on, Jeremy? He says the Lakers got it all in 2020. Shree says Kawhi will be a Clipper, and Scott says he says, I'm surprised Kawhi wants to be in a big city. To all those comments, the Lakers, I think they have the best odds. Obviously, that's what everyone fully believes. Kawhi going to the Clippers, the rumor or that he bought a house doesn't mean anything to me.
When you make that much money?
Yeah. I would have houses across the United States as well. Scott's saying he's surprised that he'd want to be in a big city. The reason that he wants to be in a big city is the media. And I get that he is a quiet guy around the media, but what the media does is it creates opportunities for higher advertisement deals and things like that. I know that he has to deal with New Balance or something like that.
Exactly. That's a win for dads everywhere.
But
flipping the burgers on the grill
but
and your
it's
New
not
Balance.
just a shoe deal. There's, mattress deals. There's car deals. There's credit card deals. There's, you name it. When you're in a bigger media, I
think he just wants to go where the weather's
It's the best
nice.
way to look at baseball. It's the best way to look at baseball. The reason the New York Yankees have so much money is they got, 50 million people living in their city, and then you look at Kansas City Royals, and they got 1 million people living in their city. This is what it's about. It's the fact that more people who get to see your product out on the court create more income to you and your household.
Owen, I promise we're getting to the Browns. Also, Chris says Kawhi is going to be a Laker. He told him after the parade. I think he told everybody when he didn't kind of give any kind of affirmation of, I'm going to re-sign when they were begging him to say it. I'll say this, going back to Scott's thing as to whether Kawhi wants to play in a big city, I don't think it's advertisement-based. I think the guy has more money than he ever wants or will ever need because he's very humble. He's not very driven by money. I think he just wants to go back home where he's from, and he also wants to go to a place that, like I said, money's not an object to him. You just go take your family out where they're going to have the best time, where they're going to have the best life. Would you rather be living in Toronto's weather, or would you rather where you can't go outside? And I lived outside of Toronto when I was younger. Not great. Honestly, you get about 3 months of the year you can actually go outside. Or would you rather go to LA where it's always sunny and 75? I mean, it's apples to oranges, man. It's not even the same. It's not even the same when you talk about destination.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's a big thing in the NBA where you max out these contracts and you can't pay them anymore. If you're going to make pretty much the same money in Toronto or LA, and you're going to make a little bit more in Toronto, but if you're going to make close to the same money, why not go where the weather's nice? And maybe the advertisements are better. And maybe I make more money on the side and everything else. Why not go and be comfortable and be on a good team instead of be on a good team and it always be cold and I get to go to the arena once in a while. I get to go to Jurassic Park in the freezing weather, and that's all I do. I think there's outside forces here.
So you're saying not everyone's fit to live in Canada?
No, you got to be tough. And I'm not saying Kawhi Leonard's not tough, but it takes a will to stay in that kind of weather. That's all I can say. Jeremy says it wasn't sunny in LA today. All right, well, that was one of the 10 times in the year where it rains in LA. But, again, if that's where you're from and the weather's always nice and you're going to make close to the same money, would you pick LA or would you pick Toronto? You're probably paying less taxes in California. You're paying less taxes than Canada. So I don't blame him for wanting to jump ship.
I don't blame him.
I would play for the Spurs again because you're not paying that state income tax. You can keep so much more of that $27 million.
I'm sticking to my guns. I'm saying he's staying in Toronto. I get all the reasons why he would leave, but I can't go back on my word. And I said anything short of a championship, he'll leave. And he won a championship. I think he'll stay.
Owen says he likes the cold. Everybody says that till you live in the tropics.
I like cold beer.
Everyone says you like the cold till you live in the tropics.
Every time you get a little bit of frost in your beer, oof, that's perfect.
Yeah, you just leave them outside in Canada. Who needs a refrigerator when you got the outdoors?
It would save me on my electric bill.
It would help. Let's talk about the Browns. We also said we were going to talk about them. We weren't going to talk about basketball the whole show.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about the Browns. We're going to shift gears here. Let's talk about a team that obviously pretty star-studded, just like the Lakers. We're talking about all these star-studded teams. You have a sexy city like LA. Now you've got a sexy city like Cleveland we're going to be talking about here. I mean, the weather's basically even the same.
Another city you lived in. Or almost lived in. Well, Toronto.
Steve's right. Beer stays colder in Toronto, but Not if it freezes.
This is a Jake show.
Is it?
You get to talk about Toronto, where you almost lived in, and you get to talk about Cleveland, where you lived in.
Exactly. I got Buffalo's next, and then Nashville. So, look, going back to the Cleveland Browns, I think everyone has to sit there and tip their hat to the offseason they had, because this team was already on the rise, bringing in guys like Nick Chubb, and who's that quarterback that I can't think of? Oh, yeah, Baker Mayfield. They brought in a bunch of guys that were already developing, already starting to look like the next big thing in the NFL, and then what did they do? They doubled down, Drew. They're playing aggressive here, and they're trying to bring in guys that are going to help them win a Super Bowl. They're going for it all, just like the Lakers. I think that's the theme of the show. We're going for it all today.
Scott says a cannabis cruise in Toronto Bay every year.
You know what else is legal in California? Cannabis. I'm not saying Kawhi needs it. You listen to him laugh, I say he's probably not on it. But I'm just saying, it's everywhere. It's everywhere at this point, Scott.
Let's talk about the Browns during their offseason this year. They definitely did some huge change, and there's no doubt about it. When you look on paper with this roster, this team has definitely seen a lot of upgrades. You look at the upgrade at wide receiver core that everyone's talking about with Odell Beckham Jr. It's one of the biggest moves during the offseason that was made, probably even over the AB move.
I'm going to round out basketball here one more time. Jeremy says free health care in Canada, but when you got it like Kawhi's got it, I don't think you're worried about that. Plus, I think the NBA takes care of you anyway. You need to see a team doctor. You go and talk to a team doctor. You need to see a specialist. He points you in the right direction. And again, if you're making $27.5 million, I don't think healthcare is. I don't think you're worried about a lot of things that a lot of us are worried about. Going back to this.
Let me finish my thing.
Go ahead.
So when we talk about the free agency, they obviously improved in the wide receiver area. They also improved in the running back area, which they didn't really need. It was kind of like an add on top of something you're already good at. But when you bring in someone like Kareem Hunt after week 8, the combination of Hunt and Chubb and Johnson, if Johnson stays, is one of the best receiving or running back cores in the NFL. I think where a lot of this faults at is the fact that they signed Freddie Kitchens as their head coach when there were so many other head coaches out there that have experience that you could have put these superstars around. It maybe made a bigger difference in your organization. They're putting a lot on Freddie Kitchens, and I know Sharif's out there with me, and I know that you also agree with this. Their biggest downfall is the fact that they put Freddie Kitchens at that head coaching position.
This should have been Greg Williams. And my biggest point is don't make decisions out of fear. They were afraid he was going to move on if they gave him the offensive coordinating position here. My point is, you already had success out of Greg Williams, who basically, I don't want to say single-handedly, but he oversaw the turnaround in Cleveland. I mean, when Hugh Jackson started the year in 2018, everyone's like, business as usual. Tyrod Taylor stinks. He didn't stink, but you know what I'm saying. He's not good enough to win games. Hugh Jackson doesn't seem to be able to motivate these players. And then what happens? You put Baker Mayfield in. You get that little spark. You fire Hugh Jackson. Then the spark turns into a flame, and all of a sudden, Greg Williams comes in there. He's a fiery guy, most famous for being suspended for Bountygate, not also being a Titans former defensive coordinator. This guy knows how to light the fire in people. He knows how to get the most out of his guys. All of a sudden, you go from a guy like Hugh Jackson that's very dispassionate, very metered, very, very logical, and it's not about the emotions, to a guy that just wants to fire everybody up. All of a sudden, you start rolling. You get momentum on your side. You start winning games. This should have been Greg Williams as the head coach here. You should have made Freddie Kitchens the head